over at Double Fine, and as some of you might know, one of our areas in the game is called sugar binding, and it's all about cakes. So I figured I'm going to talk about simulating and rendering cakes. Just look at that stuff. It looks amazing, isn't it? Obviously, you should always do like reference photo analysis and look at stuff. I mean, crazy.
Strawberries.
Yeah, I mean, that's just the icing on the cake. Just look at all the crazy colors. It's pretty awesome, and stuff like that. Yeah. Anyway, no, I'm not actually talking about cakes. Sorry.
April Fool.
April Fools. It is April 1st. So got it. Got you all. Nice. All right. What I actually want to talk about is adding virtual reality support to Mnemonic, which is an Amnesia Fortnite game I worked on this year. And just in case you don't know what Amnesia Fortnite is, it's the internal game jam at Double Fine where games like this get made and everybody in the company can pitch a game. It doesn't, everybody really can say, I want to do this, and then if you get voted, you can make those kind of games. And this is the game I worked on, which is kind of a film noir-esque kind of exploration game / kind of 3D kind of adventure game. And what I want to talk about today specifically is kind of the lessons learned from going from there to there. So adding kind of virtual reality support to the game. Obviously, VR right now is like a very hot topic, and everybody kind of wants to do it. And we read about it before we did that, and I played with it. But it's always a different thing going through the whole process for a project. So the first lesson we kind of learned is that scale really, really matters. Like your world has to be modeled like in realistic kind of units. Otherwise, your brain is going to immediately pick up on it. Like, it's really amazing on a 2D screen. You don't notice weird scale issues, but as soon as you go into like 3D and have kind of depth cues, everything looks really, really weird and stuff. And we actually didn't do very well on that because the Amnesia Fortnite is just like 2 weeks. So after we realized that we made a mistake, there was no way for us to fix it. But if that's something you're planning, make sure you model everything kind of according to real life measurements. The second lesson we learned is always or never ever ever take rotational control away from the player. And that includes things like camera shakes if you have some kind of explosion or stuff like that going on, or head bobbing for first person games, or what we do very often in Double Fine games is cutscenes that take away the control for the camera and just animate that. And that's very, very bad because you have that thing on, you have kind of like 3D cues coming into your brain, but then you move your head and you don't actually get any feedback from that rotation, and your brain gets very, very confused and you feel vomity very, very soon. So never ever do that. And we did pretty good on that. We convinced our team to not do that. The third lesson is 2D stuff, which is kind of UI as well as post effects, do not work in virtual reality. And for post effects, it's kind of more subtle in this, and I can talk about it after the talk because I don't have time for that, unfortunately, right now. But there are ways around it. For us, we actually had a full 3D inventory. So as you can see, kind of the items are on a ring around the kind of the character, and you can rotate those. So they actually have real 3D positions, and they actually integrate very well with the world. And that really works much better than having some kind of 2D flat UI. That's very hard to realize. And then kind of the last lesson I want to talk about is that it's kind of a no-brainer if you read about VR is like latency really matters. And what I mean by latency is really kind of the time that takes from the user rotating the head until the user sees the kind of results of that head rotation. Because the data has to travel through the USB cable to your engine, you compute something, you send the data like in terms of rendering data, and then you send it to the graphics card, and then it takes some time, and there are like some factors in there that you can't actually control at all. But you want to make sure that everything is kind of as fast as possible. So in conclusion, virtual reality is actually pretty awesome. And it's definitely something I'm really excited about, and I want to go back and work more with. One thing I really learned in doing this process is like you really have to design with VR in mind right away. Porting something afterwards is incredibly difficult because you're going to run those constraints, and it's sometimes very hard to fix those after the fact. Precision is really important. That applies to scale, or like things like never take any rotation control away. Make sure everything always works perfectly, because bugs are really subtle in VR. Like sometimes you don't notice right away, but like after half an hour working in an environment, you kind of start to feel a bit sick, and it's kind of sometimes really hard to kind of connect the dots of realizing what is actually going on. I wrote a blog post about that, so if you're interested, you can check that out. And that is all I have time to talk about, and I think right on time too. Perfect. Thanks, guys.